The Adeptus Astartes have won glories aplenty thanks to the efforts of its many martial creeds. Myriad in their methods of waging war, the need for a variety of Space Marine exemplars to face the most deadly threats of the galaxy has seen to the creation of many foundings. Yet not all foundings have stood the test of time, and many have proven colossal failures. Yet none have earned the infamy of a specific brand of warriors, created to diminish the flaws of their progeny. For today, we shall elucidate the chapters derived from the infamous 21st, the Cursed Founding.
The beast! The bronze beast in the darkness! Footsteps! It never tired, it just kept coming. We didn't stand a chance. Wherever we turned, we could not escape! Never escape!
The Minotaurs are a successor chapter of unknown origin. Founded during the 21st so-called Cursed Founding, these warriors are regarded as quite possibly the most brutal Space Marines within all branches of the Adeptus Astartes. Distrusted by their peers of the Angels of Death and even custodians of the Golden Host, close scrutiny bears truth to the assertion that their ties to the High Lords of Terra supersedes all other responsibilities. Active from the later years of the 36th millennium, after 2 millennia of service, mysteriously, the chapter disappeared from active duty as their honor rolls were expunged from history. Their records intentionally suppressed by their closest allies, the Adeptus Administratum. These enforcers of the Imperium's bureaucracy, after millennia of inactivity, returned to the fray, exempt from even the authority of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. Renowned for their merciless and ferocious carnage wrought in battle, these stubborn killers refuse to follow the orders of commanders they deem unworthy. Tithing their gene seed at their own convenience to the Mechanicum Magos Inviglia, indicators of their chimeric gene seed lineage have caused the spread of rumors that their gene seed may bear relationship to that of traitor stock. Famed for their combating of the Night Lords and Iron Warriors within the Andromaque system of Abaddon the Despoiler's 8th Black Crusade, suppression of the Macarian heresy, and defense of Hermetica, arguably their most infamous campaign would be that of the Badab War. Collaborating with loyalist chapters, seeking to bring the Astral Claws and their chapter master, Luft Huron, to justice, the scars inflicted upon their allies, the crestfallen Lamentus chapter, remain to this day despite their atonement. Committing the entirety of their chapter to the campaign during the 4th year of the war, the Minotaurs fought independently from their peers, yet regardless exacted a heavy toll on the forces of the Tyrant of Badab. Aiding the Crimson Fist chapter during the reclamation efforts of their homeworld, Rindsworld, the harrowing of the Night Reapers of the Larnard Rifts, and enacting exterminatus actions against the Maynarch Dynasty tombworlds of the Orphean War, the war record of these deadly Astartes are more varied than a cursory glance may suggest. Due to their proclivity to unleash ruin with no regard for casualties, unfounded assertions that their gene line descends from the Iron Warriors has done little to impact their status as the chosen liquidators of the High Lords of Terra. Quick to respond to any and all calls to arms issued by the High Lords of Terra, the Minotaurs have excelled in operations requiring the purge of disloyal Space Marines. Earning a fell reputation as kin killers, the Ultramarines and their descendants refuse to fight beside the Minotaurs due to their near annihilation of the Inceptors chapter. Pinning their enemies between their lines before crushing them with overwhelming firepower, none are permitted to escape their wrath should they surrender or seek forgiveness. Their fortress monastery, besieged by the Death Guard Traitor Legion 7th Company following the birth of the Great Rift across the stars, despite their success in repelling the invaders, much of their gene seed stock showed signs of infection by the Plague God. Outfitting their immense relic warship, the Daedalus Crater, as their mobile fortress monastery, its sheer size dwarfs all other Imperial voidcraft, with exception given to the Imperial Fist flagship, the Phalanx. Embarking upon an Imperial crusade to reach Holy Terra, their mission to acquire pure genetic materials would coincide with petition from the Administratum to purge the High Lords of Terra of corrupt individuals during the Hexarchy Rebellion. Among the first to receive Primaris Space Marine reinforcements of any chapter upon their arrival to Terra, the Minotaurs aided the Indomitas Crusade among the ranks of the Crusade fleet, Secundus. Their involvement as part of Task Force Faustus 3 and 4 to retake the Bosphori system from the Thousand Suns exemplified their impeccable war record against even such dangerous foes. Somewhat Codex compliant in their organization structure, their combat doctrine deviates extremely from the guidelines of the revered Battle Tome. Committing excessive amounts of warriors to every engagement, the Minotaurs refuse to operate in small teams due to their proclivity for siege warfare and concentrated barrages. Callous in their destructive tendencies, it is by no means a relief for besieged citizens to behold the banner of the Minotaurs should they descend from the heavens, their sheer firepower leveling entire hive cities should such actions enable victory. Masters of attritional warfare, dependent on confined engagement zones, senior officers of the chapter accept the loss of battle brothers willingly, for in their mind, war is simply a calculus of enemy slain to kinsmen felled. Supplied with armaments, vehicles, and recruits more superior in quality than possibly any other chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, their loyalty to the High Lords of Terra permits them high amounts of Vindicator and Predator tanks to be used in the field of war. Their armory filled to the brim with Terminator, Void-modified Mark III iron pattern, and rare Mark VIII errant patterns of power armor. Their stock of among the finest power weapons and even Riser pattern plasma weapons are the envy of many a chapter. Their elite first company, clad in Tartaros and Arkonak tactical dreadnought armor, their fleet of Storm Eagle gunships, Spartan assault tanks, and other relic vehicles are unheard of for chapters outside the heritage of the first founding. Records of the Orphean War, citing their deployment of 10 suits of Contemptor pattern dreadnoughts, the sight of a single of such venerated war suits is uncommon even among the most revered of chapters. Their kinsmen regarding such dreadnoughts as hecatons, derived from the Terran term for monster enslaved. Despite their imposing stature, the Minotaurs treat such relics of war almost as if they are mundane. Accelerating their recruitment process to easily replenish their numbers, the Minotaurs' apothecaries' use of psycho-indoctrination and neurocerebral surgeries facilitates obscenely quick transitions from neophytes into full-fledged battle brothers. Highly dangerous to each subject's physical and mental well-being, the Minotaurs' disregard for weakness counters what other chapters might perceive as extreme measures. Seconding their Astartes to serve within the Death Watch only on the most singular of occasions, it seems the chapter cares not for the battle honors won within the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos. Showing respect and submission only to the Master of Mankind and High Lords of Terra, the Minotaurs' fervent obedience to their masters contrasts starkly with their otherwise blunt arrogance to all others. Finding no glory in destroying lesser foes, the Minotaurs revel in facing worthy adversaries to test their martial skill, the example of their terrifying chapter master, Asterion Moloch, causing them to come to blows with the Genesis chapter of Astartes, Sisters of Battle, and even the Adeptus Custodes. Their fleet comprised of a battle barge and 8 strike cruisers, some of which forcibly taken from the Lamenter's chapter during the Badab War, though as many as 2 battle barges and several strike cruisers under their command have been destroyed in recent millennia. The chapter cares only should they have earned a worthy death. Brooding in nature and showing little to no interest in displaying battle honors upon their armor, the blood spilled from their spite-fueled rampages seems prize enough for these malicious space marines. Clad in bronze ceramite, typically with no variance in color scheme, only veterans are permitted to adorn their pauldron with dark crimson paint, marking their tactical role with white stencils on their right pauldron. Few Astartes utilize company nor squad markings on their armor, though known to themselves, their use of Helican glyph markings display with pride their gloried kills against worthy enemies. The symbol of their chapter, a black-horned, red bull's head on a field of bronze, strikes fear into the hearts of both mortals and immortals alike, for such a sign harkens only pain and misery. Hurling themselves into the thickest of fighting, instilled with unbridled fury, These unpredictable, unreliable, and unrelenting warriors are a menace to any who fight beside them, and a nightmare to those who oppose them. Now assimilating Primara Space Marines into their ranks, this already formidable chapter continues to outperform the vast majority of their contemporaries, retaining their constant full complement of Astartes and pedigree as among the most accomplished Space Marine chapters.
The Order's Pronatus have the responsibility of maintaining and blessing the many banners and symbols of the Order's militant. They have even been called upon to reconsecrate the livery of other Imperial bodies, as was the case when they repaired the chapter banner of the Lamenter's chapter of the Adeptus Astartes after its involvement in the Badab Uprising. It is said that the Sisters Pronatus who repaired the banner wept openly as they did so. So terrible to contemplate were the sins of the Lamenters. To this day, the standard is known as the Banner of Tears. The Adeptus Astartes forged the path of salvation, emancipation, and redemption for the waning Imperium. Forged from the Emperor's sanctified will, armed with his greatest weapons, and clad in his divine protection, there are no warriors more revered as his angels. Yet among their ranks, one such chapter stands as the most tragic disciples of their warrior creed, and despite their best efforts, prove to be the recipients of unrelenting sorrow. The long-suffering sons of the great angel, the Lamenters. Among the chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, there are none more intimately familiar with misfortune and strife. Founded during the 36th millennium as one of the so-called cursed founding chapters, alongside the Minotaurs, Sons of Antaeus, Firehawks, Flame Falcons, Blood Gorgons, and Black Dragons. The attribution of such a maligned founding was not made lightly. The Black Dragons had produced mutations within their genetic code, causing their bones to mutate into sharpened appendages, whilst the Blood Gorgons had been declared excommunicate traitoris only 6 decades into their service. Seeking to remove the genetic flaws and deficiencies within the genetic code of each chapter to which the founding was derived, the Lamenters would be no exception. Their noble lineage of the Blood Angels, though venerated, had nonetheless drawn censure and scrutiny by the Imperium for their bloodthirsty rampages caused by their successors. Removing the curse of both the Red Thirst and Black Rage from their genetic coding, the meddling of the Mechanicus, though successful in diminishing one curse, would engender another. Steeped in a palpable aura of misfortune, the Lamenters, despite their virtuous nature, would forever endure an endless slew of unfortunate events. Shunned by their fellow Astartes due to their recorded campaigns costing the lives of their own kin and allies alike in excess of even their junior chapter peers, the crestfallen sons of Sanguinius, through no fault of their own, have never achieved salvation from their plight. As the remainder of the cursed founding chapters spread dissent and unrest throughout the galaxy, the Lamenters chose to distance themselves from such turmoil and departed to the fringes of space. Roaming as a fleet-based chapter, the Lamenters sought to prevent their involvement from costly civil wars and political quagmires. Serving for over a millennium as stalwart warriors of the Emperor, the Lamenters faced Xenos threats throughout the western fringe of the Imperium, in their efforts to defend humanity. Earning an enviable and reputed record of victories, battle honors, and relief efforts, regardless of their plaudits, the Astartes of the Lamenters could never prevent catastrophe from rearing its ugly head. Their first noted crusade, the Siege of Corilla of Abaddon the Despoiler's 9th Black Crusade during 537.M38, required every able-bodied crusading chapter to aid in repelling the War Master's forces. Fighting alongside the Mortifactus chapter, the Sons of Guilliman refused outright to stand alongside the Lamenters and abandoned Corilla to prevent further ruin. Standing alone against the Black Legion, the Lamenters fought a desperate battle for 6 weeks, incurring horrendous losses. Reinforced by the White Scars and Ultramarines chapters, only 200 Lamenters survived their defiant stand against the Despoiler. Traversing through the warp, Imperial records would deem the chapter lost, with no hope of renewal, yet be shocked to receive reports of their beleaguered fleet returning to real space, 1 century following their disappearance. Slowly rebuilding their fleet and chapter numbers until their replenishment during the millennia to follow, the Lamenters now patrol the galactic core to fight and die far from the populace of humanity. Yet with the petition for aid by the High Lords of Terror during 587.M41, a threat required opposing within the Maelstrom zone of the galaxy. The second largest warp rift known to Imperial space, this naturally occurring rend in the galaxy had proven to be a nest of chaos spawn and heretical filth, exceeded in strength only by the denizens of the Eye of Terror. Requiring guardians to prevent the spill of corruption from spreading across the Imperium, a founding of chapters were required to stand vigil upon the precipice of the Great Legion. Assembling the Lamenters, Mantis Warriors, and the renowned Astral Claws chapter as their leaders, the Maelstrom Warders would be tasked with patrolling the expanse of the Maelstrom's western proximity to best oppose piratical raids and chaos incursions. Taking to their appointment with pride and zealous fervor, the Lamenters with years of service would form a strong bond of camaraderie with their Warder's senior officer and chapter master of the Astral Claws, Luft Huron. Offered respect and honor, unlike to so many of their previous alliances with other Astartes chapters, the compassion of the Astral Claws would prove their undoing in the years to follow. Aiding in joint campaigns on occasion, such as the Caradon campaign of 698.M41 alongside the Ultramarines, Angels of Absolution, Silver Skulls, and Marines Errant, and the Corinth Crusade of 701.M41, the Lamenters dealing with the chapter master of the 13th, Marneus Calgar, earned their chapter great renown and repute for their deeds. Freeing 3 million enslaved souls from the oppression of the Orc Xenos, the Lamenters once more gave their lives dearly to save the civilian populace of the planet of Slaughterhouse Free. Though succumbing to their long-repressed black rage, the Lamenters still remaining in a sane state would be forced to detonate seismic charges to collapse the underground tunnels of Slaughterhouse Free, causing the deaths of millions of the human slaves. Understanding of their duty, the prisoners uttered a prayer to the Emperor as the rubble collapsed on top of them, for they would die as free men and women, emancipated from their greenskin jailers. Crippling the Orc clan's infrastructure, though considered a great victory by the Imperium, the Lamenters' successful campaign soured with their knowledge of the many deaths incurred through their intervention. Refusing to accept a gift of an Iron Halo by Marneus Calgar as recognition for their deeds, the Lamenters, though accused of great insult by the Crusade's commanding officers, would receive no bad blood from the Lord of Ultramar. However, even in the wake of hundreds of their men and millions of their charges lost to the flames of such a terrible war, the tribulations of the Lamenters had only just begun. During 901.M41, Luft Huron, chapter master of the Astral Claws, would secede the Maelstrom Warders from the Imperium. Upholding the autonomous nature of the Adeptus Astartes above even the authority of the High Lords of Terror, the hubris of the Tyrant of Badab would not go unpunished. Seeking to lead a crusade to cleanse the Maelstrom once and for all of its corrupted denizens, Huron's command saw to the end of tithes to the Imperium in materials and resources, in order to fuel his ambitions to purge the Warp Rift. Allied with the Mantis Warriors, Executioners and Lamenters, as loyalist chapters such as the Firehawks, Salamanders, Fire Angels, Nova Marines, Red Scorpions, Exorcists, Howling Griffins, Marines Errant, Raptors, Sons of Medusa, Minotaurs, Carcharodons, and Star Phantoms entered the fray. The next 12 years of conflict proved to be the greatest stain of dishonor the Lamenters chapter could ever hope to achieve. Incurring massive casualties whilst fighting against the Minotaurs chapter, the Lamenters surrendered from the war during 908.M41 to prevent their chapter's extinction. Only 311 Astartes in number, each surviving member of the chapter would be imprisoned within the prison hulk of Sagan II for the remainder of the war. brought before the Constitutorial Court and put on trial for their crimes. The lamenters for their actions received the judgment of 5 chapter masters of the Astartes, whom had not partaken in the conflict. According to Astartes tradition, the lamenters, once found guilty for being found in breach of the outlines of the Codex Astartes and broken their covenant with the Emperor, must endure a penitent crusade. Pride had been their downfall, not treachery, and as a result the lamenters had been given an opportunity to redeem themselves in the eyes of their Space Marine kin. For 100 years, the lamenters must earn the forgiveness of the Master of Mankind by undertaking campaigns across the stars against his enemies, with no replenishment of their numbers nor support from the Imperium. Their fate left in the hands of the Emperor, the Adeptus Sororitas mended their tattered and broken battle standard and sought to its purification as they embarked on their quest for redemption. Openly weeping as they mended the banner of the lamenters, such was their purity that as they weaved the fabric to its former glory, the Sisters of Battle did contemplate the Emperor's great sacrifice in the name of humanity, and did truly know the terrible depths of the sin the lamenters had wrought. Embarking upon their penitent crusade, the lamenters fight with unrelenting yet remorseful fury as the weight of their past crimes pushes them to breaking point. The shame of their failures to protect the innocent, defend the Imperium, and embody the Emperor's holy will, the lamenters seek out their duty to absolve themselves of sin despite their endless misfortune. Combating the Tyranid High Fleet Kraken during the Second Tyrannic War of 992.M41, the lamenters could not hope to face a more deadly foe at such depleted numbers. Slowing the advance of the Great Devourer, their last stand upon the planet of Malvolion allowed for many Imperial citizens to escape at the cost of more lives sacrificed for their honor. Barely 4 whole companies of the chapter remained as the chapter continued to face High Fleet Kraken for a further year of conflict. Aiding the Red Hunters chapter during their battles against Kraken, the task force assigned to track the lamenters' progress in their crusade suffered heavy losses alongside their calamitous allies. Reduced further to 3 battle companies during 999.M41, the Lord Commander of the Imperium Nihilus, Dante, would call upon the lamenters for aid. The Tyranid Menace and forces of the Ruinous Powers sought to destroy the homeworld of their primogenitor chapter, the Blood Angels, and would require every successor of the Blood to prevent its devastation. Yet among all chapters of the Blood, the lamenters, by virtue of their depleted numbers, abstained from aiding their brothers in arms. The only Blood Angel successor, absent from its founder's direst hour of need, the lamenters have further fractured their standing with their closest allies. And in these dark times, none can be certain if such a beleaguered and lamentable chapter is capable of surviving further losses. During their service as a fully replenished chapter, the lamenters bore a unique tradition among the warriors of the Blood. Seemingly unshackled from the flaws of the Red First and Black Rage, their compliance to the Codex Astartes in principle allowed for the chapter to be exemplars of the optimal potential of each successor of the Ninth Legion. Ascribing to the Codex's outlines of 100 Astartes per battle company, during their peak strength, the chapter comprised of 4 battle companies and 1 company of veterans, Devastator Reserves, Tactical Reserves, Assault Reserves, and Scouts. Experts at flexible battlefield deployments, combining their forces into effective strike forces, the lamenters champion practicality above all virtues of war. Recruiting their aspirants from feudal worlds and distant colonies prior to their penitent crusade, as a fleet-based chapter, the lamenters do not favor a single world or its populace as a means to draw fresh recruits. Fighting without direct support from Imperial forces for much of their service, their independent nature has instilled within them a self-reliant reputation, uncommon for a Codex-compliant chapter. Favoring shock assault tactics such as drop pod assaults with close air support, the chapter's reliance on Thunderhawk gunships and Storm Ravens facilitate predictable yet effective tactics. Their panoplies of war more alike to a Codex-compliant chapter than that of their own lineage as Sons of Sanguinius, the chapter retains few relics or cultural trappings from the culture of Baal. Their command hierarchy incorporating the sanguinary priesthood of the chapter, these chaplains are known as the Calyx by their peers. monitoring their kin for signs of the Red First or Black Rage. Though the chapter has recently founded a death company, it is rare for such damned souls to fill its ranks. Integral for the spiritual well-being of this tormented chapter, it is not hyperbole to state that without the Calyx, the Lamenter's chapter would have surrendered to their woes long ago. The gene seed of the chapter, though adapted to diminish the effects of their gene curse, is little understood by the genitors of the Imperium. An alluring prospect for the scions of the blood to alleviate their suffering, such experimentations likely mutation of their inherited curse into one arguably far worse has prevented future study and experimentation. Seen as a necessary characteristic of their creed by the Astartes such as the Flesh Tearers, to remove the imprecation of their bloodline is to court with disaster. Seen by their kin as damned souls unable to redeem themselves from their fell adversity, the temperament and idiosyncrasies of the Lamenter's Astartes seem unfavourable to even the most troubled angels of the blood. For it is said that among the Lamenters, the grief of the loss of their Primarch is felt more keenly than any of their peers, which as a result casts a melancholic pall throughout their ranks. Clad in gleaming yellow armour, the symbol of their chapter, a bleeding heart upon a black and white checkerboard design, is worn solemnly upon their left pauldron. Their squad specialty, whether it be battle line, close support, fire support, veteran or command staff, is worn on their right pauldron, a white low Gothic numeral centered upon their symbol to identify their squad number. The color of their left knee plate indicates their company, as is outlined by the Codex Astartes. Each color is identical to the conventions of the Codex. A sight of salvation to the naive of the Imperium, and a foreboding warning to their veteran allies, the Lamenters, though valiant in their intentions, bring both hope and despair in their wake. Harbingers of bitter victories and glorious defeats, regardless of their continued misfortune, they shall never falter in their duty to carry their burden without apprehension or rejection of the Emperor's will. For it is believed by their current chapter master, Malakim Foros, that with every tribulation they endure, they shall overcome and grow stronger from its temperance. And it is the hope of the Imperium that such posturing is not proven to be mistaken. For those we cherish, we die in glory.
The Blood Gorgons are a renegade successor chapter of unknown origin. Derived from the so-called cursed 21st founding of the 36th millennium, these Chaos Space Marines were declared excommunicate traitoris 6 decades thereafter as they followed their chapter master, Gamadin, to damnation. Fleeing into the Eye of Terror to evade purge by the Space Wolves, within their new abode, the Space Hulk, Cauldronborn, the Blood Gorgons descended into infighting as their Khoitan captains, known as the Murites, laid claim to various sections of the vessel, nominally led by the Chaos Sorcerer, Anko Mur. Uniting his men under his banner once more, Gamadin, under the new title of Khorsad, laid waste to those who defied his will and sundered many sections of the Space Hulk during the Civil War. Establishing rituals to bloodbond their brethren, the remaining Astartes of the Warband pillaged 62 worlds within the Bastion sector to replenish their numbers, using gene seed recovered by the psychically powerful Chirurgeon witches. Clad in ceramite of burnt umber, covered in barnacles and fossilized organisms, the mutant growths of their armor mutate fins and quills into their shell-like facade. The former symbol of their chapter, a Gorgon's head derived from ancient Terra's past, none retain the symbol of their former glory, and instead adopt sigils of the ruinous powers. Scavenging resources as a band of piratical raiders, these traditionalist Astartes regardless champion freedom as adherents of chaos, undivided. He saw Vitrus and Aperos talking to the 2 sergeants who had just arrived. That was the opportunity he had been seeking. He moved toward them, walking softly over the cobbled surface of the courtyard, doing his best to be inconspicuous. As he drew near, the Space Marines removed their helmets. and he felt a rush of satisfaction and terror. That there were mutations in the ranks of the Black Dragons was no secret. The Dragonclaw's assault teams were composed entirely of Space Marines, whose osmodular zygote had gone berserk. The implanted organ was responsible for the enormous size and strength of Adeptus Astartes skeletons, but in the case of the claws, it didn't know where to stop. The bones kept developing, most visibly in the form of outgrowths on the skull, and, most effectively, for combat, as blades, some of them retractable, in the forearm. As far as Lettinger and many of his Ordo Malleus colleagues were concerned, it simply wasn't possible that such a desirable mutation could be a chance development. Gene tampering was tainting the Black Dragons. Yet when the chapter, reluctantly, submitted its tithe of genetic material, the samples were always of a purity beyond reproach. They were too good to be true, as suspicious in their own way as the Bone Blades. Inquisition, in the person of Werner Lettinger, was deep in the Dragon's Second Company, and the warp take him if he didn't find the means to launch a full, formal investigation against this Emperor-forsaken result of the cursed founding of M36. As he took in Sergeants Volos and Toharon, he felt the locks to the Dragon's secrets tumbling open beneath his hands. Though he didn't have any formal proof, he could see how the gene tithe passed the examinations. Toharon showed no sign of mutation at all. Underneath a mane of blonde hair, his forehead was unblemished by disfiguring crest. His skin tone was lighter than that of the other dragons Lettinger had seen. The norm was dark, lending credence to the theory that the dragons were debased derivations of the salamanders. But Toharon's flesh had a glow that was almost human. All the dragons would have to do to satisfy the tithing demands would be to send in material drawn from Toharon and others like him. He was, Lettinger realized, a very special kind of mutant, the aberrantly pure-born in a world of monsters. And beside him stood the supreme monster. More than 3 meters tall, Volos loomed over every other living being in the courtyard. He was so gigantic that he wore custom-made armor and used an oversized jump pack for lift. His eyes were black, glinting pits of obsidian looking out from dark grey. Leathery hide whose overlapping ridges looked disturbingly like scales. His razored horn dispensed with all pretense, as far as Lettinger was concerned, of being anything other than demonic. When he spoke to Vretrus, his fangs poked out over his lower lip. As Lettinger watched, the 2 Space Marines, each for a moment, returned his stare. Toharon looked him up and down, his eyes pausing for a cold second at the inquisitorial rosette on Lettinger's breast before moving up to his face and favoring him with an expression of absolute hostility and contempt. Volos barely glanced at him, and though he showed none of Toharon's antagonism, his indifference was worse. It told Lettinger that he was beneath notice. He wasn't even an irritant, merely a detail on the landscape. The Black Dragons are a successor chapter of the Salamanders. Among the 21st founding of the Adeptus Astartes, infamous as the so-called Cursed Founding, the efforts of the Adeptus Mechanicus to harness and improve the inherent gene seed characteristics of several chapters of the Astartes ended in failure. During 991.M35, alongside the Minotaurs, Lamenters, Firehawks, Flame Falcons, Sons of Antaeus, and Blood Gorgons, the Black Dragons endured the experimentations of the Adepts of Mars, preceding the impending Age of Apostasy. Mutations ravaged the chapters of the Cursed Founding, causing many sired from such experiments to be corrupted by chaos, causing their legacies to be redacted from Imperial history. The mutations of the Black Dragons by far the most pronounced of their kindred, the bones of their arms rupturing from their skin into blade-like appendages, signs of other growths from their heads and forearms, incurred censure from the Inquisition. The insides of their mouths discolored to black, and tongues forming into pointed dagger-like muscles, the poisonous fangs which protrude from their jaws strike fear into the hearts of mortal men. Difficult to work alongside due to their terrifying appearance, Several chapters, such as the Dark Angels and Marines Malevolent, refuse to ever fight by their side. Though much of their campaigns have been forgotten with time due to the direct actions of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition and Departamento Munitorum, among their most fell encounters occurred during the year of 232.M40. Enacted by the homunculi Hex Coven of the Drukhari, who sought to learn from the fell deeds of the 21st founding, the Lords of Pain took a keen interest in the mutated sons of Vulcan during the skirmish known as the Bone Curse. Bargaining with the piratical Duke, Sliskus, the Dark Eldar ambushed the chapter within the Donorian system during their purge of the monsters infesting the sector. Both within the void of space and upon the worlds of Donorian, Sliskus sacrificed many of his Voidcraft in order to capture a dozen Space Marines of the chapter, the Covenants of the Homunculi returning their prize to the accursed realm of the Dark City. Within the deepest depths of Komorra, the Fleshcrafters began their agonizing experiments upon the flesh of the Astartes, recapturing their victims on no less than 8 of their attempts to escape during their 3-year confinement. Synthesizing the distilled essence of the Black Dragon's mutations, the Osteovirus, introduced back into one of the victims, spawned what can only be described as a twisted dragon of bone, its macabre form enshrined above the Coven's Chamber of Whispers to this day. Present during the death of Antagonis, and committing 9 of its 10 companies to aid the defense of the Third War for Armageddon, regardless of their valor in preserving the innocence of the Imperium, many still do not trust these unfortunate souls. Seeing the mutations of their osmodular zygote organ to be assigned to be championed, each Astartes bearing such gifts are assigned to the Dragon Claw squads, equipped with jump packs for aerial assault. Their mutation said to be encouraged by the efforts of the chapter's apothecaries. Many speculate the apothecarian to implant aberrant gene seed into their aspirants. Tithing 5% of their gene seed to the Adeptus Mechanicus, alike to all chapters of the Angels of Death, the cult Mechanicus has threatened the chapter on numerous occasions, for in their eyes, the chapter stalls tithes until gathering sufficient gene seed, uncorrupted by their gene flaws, in order to avoid censure. Tattooing over their scars caused by the outgrowths of their bones and injuries sustained prior to their ascension as Astartes, those afflicted by their curse sharpened the bones of their arms and sheathed them in adamantium, the tech artificers of the chapter modifying their armor of such mutated kinsmen with ports to allow for their retractable weapons. Clad in jet black ceramite, adorned with white chest aquillas and tactical markings on their right pauldrons, the chapter paints their right knee plate in the prescribed color scheme of the Codex Astartes to mark their company, with white high Gothic numerals centered on the designs to signify their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a white stylized dragon head on a field of black, is regarded as an ill omen by all who see it, whether friend or foe. Their aid given during the Indomitus Crusade under the command of Captain Jorn Tanner, earning the chapter a slight reprieve from the watchful eye of the Inquisition. The Black Dragons continue to fight the enemies of humanity, no matter the miseries they suffer. The Firehawks were a successor chapter of unknown origin. Speculated to be sired from the bloodlines of the Ultramarines, these Astartes born from the so-called cursed 21st founding for millennia earned glory for the Imperium. Most well regarded for their service during the Age of Apostasy and Badab War, their unrelenting nature and unwillingness to be distracted from their objectives, regardless earned them a fell reputation. Gifted the mobile Void Fortress, the Rapturous Rex, by Sebastian IV as reward for their service during the War of Apostasy. Following the loss of their homeworld, Zoros, the Firehawks began to roam the stars as a fleet-based chapter. Settling on a new homeworld of Cousteau 11, the Firehawks once again lost their homeworld. Their reputation to survive near extinction on multiple occasions, regaled as a legendary feat among the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes. Their victories marred by their inability to save civilian lives nor aid beleaguered Space Marine allies. During 963.M41, the chapter embarked upon the mission which would ultimately seal their fate. Ordered to combat Drukhari raiders, Harrying the Crowsworld subsector, the Firehawks ventured into the warp, never to be seen again. Declared lost in the warp 20 years later with no word of their return, the Bell of Lost Souls tolled 1,000 times to mark the death knell of the chapter, as a black candle was lit within the Chapel of Fallen Heroes. Their flagship, the Rapturous Rex, cited to be the base of operations for the Phantom Astartes, the Legion of the Damned. Evidence retrieved by the Inquisition suggests that the remaining 200 Astartes of the chapter now serve as members of this spectral force. Retrieving a chapter banner of the Firehawks, etched with the phrase, In dedicato imperatum, ultra articulo mortis, during 998.M41, the phrase, For the Emperor beyond the point of death, indicates their remnants still fight as kindred of these enigmatic ghosts.
Of all the legends of the Imperium, one of the strangest is that of the Legion of the Damned. For those who know where to look, there are many corroborated accounts of these otherworldly warriors, their unexpected appearances upon a desperate battlefield, and their sudden and inexplicable disappearance at the battle's end.
The Imperium of Man is defended by demigods, superhumans, and untold trillions of souls. Locked in a perpetual state of eternal warfare, the domains of humanity are beset at every given moment without end, and require obscene amounts of warriors to stem the tide of extinction. For today, we shall elucidate a band of warriors from beyond the Pale, who regardless of their terrifying visage, stand as among the Imperium's most dedicated defenders. The army of undead Astartes, the Legion of the Damned. In order to understand the origins of the Legion of the Damned, one must scour what information exists of their current deployments in order to glean insight into their past. Many theories have been cited by various branches of the Imperium scholastic classes, though a true consensus has never been reached to fully explain the phenomena of this chapter of ghostly Astartes. The Librarian Creed believe their manipulations of the warp to have imbued the conviction of the fallen to punish the guilty to have manifested into a life of its own. A consensual hallucination conjured by the collective resolve of humanity as it feeds into the Immaterium. The Adeptus Astartes, regarded as the Emperor's will made manifest, it is reasonable to assume that the veneration of their creed upheld by trillions of souls has galvanized into a material form. Members of the Inquisition foretell the Legion of the Damned to be demonic in nature, tools of the Emperor which can be summoned where the barrier between real space and the Immaterium wanes. The first recorded presence of the Legion of the Damned, cited during the war within the Webway, it is said that the Master of Mankind gathered the souls of loyalist dead, such as those upon the Urgal Depression of Istvan V, to fight once more, his fallen son, Ferrus Manus, leading the charge. Yet among such theories, one is regarded as the most crucial to understanding the formation of this legion of spectres, their connection to the extinct chapter, the Firehawks. Sired during the 21st so-called Cursed Founding, these veterans of countless campaigns, including the Badab War, had nonetheless suffered many losses, including 2 of their homeworlds during their millennia of service. Verging on losses which could have caused their extinction on several occasions, as is befitting of their chapter iconography, the Firehawks arose, alike to the proverbial phoenix, with each catastrophic loss. Noted for their merciless disregard for the plights of endangered collaborators in battle, their withdrawals during their allies' times of need would reach its zenith when fighting alongside the venerated first founding chapter, the Iron Hands. Beginning a 3-century-long feud between the two chapters, such ignominy would be resolved during a duel for the chapter's honor, with the death of the Firehawks' then commander by the hands of the Iron Tenth. Their last recorded action, made during 963.M41, the Firehawks investigated the Crowsworld subsector in order to engage Eldari raiders of an unprecedented scale. Requiring the entirety of their chapter and their mobile fortress monastery, the Rapturous Rex, to combat the Xenos. Their amassed strength of 5 Voidcraft, more than 800 Astartes, and 2,000 personnel lost within the tides of the Immaterium With no word from the chapter for 20 years since their departure, all hands were recorded as lost, as the Bell of Lost Souls tolled 1,000 times to mark their passing. Though a black candle was lit within the Chapel of Fallen Heroes, it is said that these stranded Astartes did not truly perish. Transformed by the influence of the warp, despite their hearts remaining pure, these warriors refused to abide the enticements of chaos. Answering hails to combat overwhelming assaults made against the domains to the Imperium's infrastructure, Imperial Navy patrols arrived to such hails, finding masses of enemy corpses, littering war zones with no sign of their aggressors. The final account of this spate of strange occurrences, recorded within the SIFT system of the Mandeville Point, such vessels secured burial coffins left in the wake of a withdrawing voidcraft of the concluded war zone. Identified to have originated from the Firehawk voidcraft, Absolute, the decayed remains of 2 space marines with an armor marked with unknown heraldry, for a time puzzled the inquisitorial investigators. The enigmatic Astartes, aiding a beleaguered research station beset by Orc freebooters a year later from this incident. After annihilating the Xenos, the fell Astartes left behind a banner of the Firehawks, inscribed with High Gothic scripture, In dedicato imperatum, ultra articulo mortis, translated as, For the Emperor, beyond the point of death. While evidence supports the claim that the Firehawks are most certainly members of the Legion of the Damned, it is by no means unlikely that this band of ghosts have assimilated many fallen Space Marines into their ranks. The integration of the Firehawks, merely the newest batch of Phantoms to join their cause, laying to rest their former trappings of their chapter, in order to assume the mantle of death incarnate. Accounts of those who bear no helmets said to be characterized by sunken skin, hollow eye sockets, and skin drained of all vitality. Reports made by the Inquisition cite that 600 of the Firehawks chapter perished during their time spent in the warp, their support craft lost with all hands. The surviving Astartes, driven mad by pain, wishing only for death, their duty to the Emperor regardless forbid them to perish, and thus drove the survivors of the Firehawks to endure until their duty was done. Abolishing their established ranking conventions and officer cadre, these living dead Space Marines resolved to embrace death beyond all norms of the Astartes creed. Strict adherents of the Imperial cult prior to their transformation, the Firehawks, now clad in light-swallowing black ceramite, embody the purest form of the Angels of Death. Rumored to be fueled by the psychic backlash of prior sins made against humanity, events such as the massacres of Istvan III, Istvan V, Kauf betrayal, and untold sins made against the Adeptus Astartes permeate through the Legion of the Damned as blood courses through a man's veins. Invigorated by an obligation to make the culprits of such heinous atrocities pay for their crimes against the fallen subjects of the Emperor, the zeal of the Legion of the Damned is unleashed through acts of cold and calculating purges. Finding no trace of teleport signatures from Auspex data retrieved from war zones where the Legion has been present, the Inquisition surmises that these supernatural entities harness warp travel independently from the Astronomicon in its pure, raw form. Able to traverse the galaxy, even when warp storms engulf much of the Imperium's domains, it seems that the Legion of the Damned can infiltrate practically any location which may otherwise seem unreachable. Yet speculation assumes that should psychic wards and countermeasures be strong enough, these may bar the Legion's path. Diverting immense resources to find a means to harness such mastery of warp traversal, the Ordo Chronos, should they prove successful in replicating the Legion's methods, could revolutionize the Imperium's war effort by enacting simultaneous sudden strikes across the length and breadth of the galaxy. Each member of this branch of the Inquisition, spending their entire careers hoping to one day study a single first-hand account of the Legion's actions. Despite the best efforts of the Ordo Chronos, these spectral Astartes seem to have an uncanny ability to conspire with natural disasters, telekinetic phenomena, and even mass onsets of cranial aneurysms to prevent their secrets from being uncovered. Bursting from sulfur-laced pillars of flame at the height of the most terrible war zones, those blessed with the fortune to witness their combat regale tales of the greatest feats of martial skill imaginable. Never wasting shot nor blade strike to wound, every action of the Legion of the Damned ensures another kill to their tally. Their economy of motion causing all mortal Astartes who bear witness to be rendered awestruck. Force weapons, melted discharges, and even plasma fire pass through their forms, as if through thin air, with only rare successful strikes being shrugged off, which would otherwise ensure the destruction of even a heavily armored dreadnought. Typically armed with bolters, flamers, heavy flamers, and multi-melters, the Legion of the Damned cleanse the wicked with purging flame, facilitated by incredible efficiency. Once battle subsides and survivors have been saved, these ghostly Astartes vanish from the battlefield, with no fanfare, nor word spoken, the holograph-like static which remains the only brief trace of their intervention. Every machine spirit of scanning technology which attempts to analyze such phenomena is forever traumatized, rendered non-functional unless attended to by among the most expert Magos or tech marines of the Omnissiah Creed. Such machines are unable to recall any data they have extracted. The mortal survivors of such incidents also incur bouts of mass amnesia, despite the scent of the burnt flesh of the Legion persisting within their nostrils for solar weeks, if not their entire lifetime. Demanding that all known information be compiled into an extensive report, the High Lords of Terror commissioned Quadrimestor's Thesis of Perpetual Martyrdom to pull all known insights of the Legion of the Damned into a comprehensive tome. Believing them, despite their warp contagion, to be compos mentis, or having mastery and control of one's mind, Imperial authorities have concluded that this clandestine order of Astartes deliberately obfuscate their strange powers and sparing involvement with the wider Imperium to quarantine their affliction from spreading. Knowing their effectiveness in battle to be too great to squander, it is the belief of Imperial scholars that the Legion is brief in intervening in battle as a matter of practicality before finally succumbing to the madness which will eventually claim them, body and soul. Their terminal affliction, whilst imbuing them with great power, inevitably destines them to eternal damnation. For during their final battles, each Astarte shall surrender to the Pyro Mortis, a state of flame-wreathed berserker fury. Burning away the Astartes' essence in a spectacle of warp immolation, the effects of this curse are accelerated the more times each Space Marine of the Legion takes to the field. Their deeds forever changing the fate of the Imperium, one such incident saving the life of Commissar Fletchlack from the Orc freebooters of Bone Dogs would ensure the Commissar's destiny to thwart the summoning of a mass demonic incursion by a psyker known as Exagius. Aiding their fellow Astartes on occasion, such as the Salamander's kill team, from the traps of the renegade Draco clan, even the Avenging Sons' Terran Crusade would have been imperiled without the intervention of these phantoms of war. Active throughout the 40th, 41st, and 42nd millennia, the Legion of the Damned earned further glories for the Imperium during the Pyrocataclysm of Valadad Prime, Doom of Idere, Defense of Syrtis Minor, and even Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. It is a testament to their mysterious origins that few Astartes of the Legion of the Damned retain their former heraldry nor symbols of heroism. Their swift appearance and dispersal impossible to track. Scholars of this elusive chapter rely purely on luck and witness accounts to compile data on this army of wraiths. While accounts such as reports filed by Ultramarine 4th Captain Uriel Ventris cite the resurrection of his legendary forebear within the tomb of Remus Ventanus, confirms him to have borne sigils of Ultramar's legacy, it is unknown if the spirit of the hero of Calth fought as part of the Legion for a singular engagement or joined the Legion entire, though it is likely he now slumbers eternal with the blessings of the Emperor. Their supposed leader, veteran Sergeant Atticus Centurius of their first company, wielding a fell Crozius known as the Animus Malorum. This weapon is said to siphon the souls of the living in order to heal and reanimate fallen brothers of the Legion of the Damned. While the slain Primarch of the Iron Tenth, Ferrus Manus, commanded their ranks during the first engagement during the war within the Webway, no further accounts can support claims that he still leads them to this day, though the Legion's preferred adoption of rapid shock assaults and overwhelming force may belie the unseen hand of Ferrus orchestrating their campaigns. Capable of fielding Rhino and Dreadnought heavy armor units, the Legion's Devastator squads lay waste to all who evade their surgical strikes of their tactical marines. Their sudden close quarters onslaughts, supported by overwhelming bike squad formations, their speed and agility could rival even that of the White Scars. Each armament carried into battle, weathered with age, such as their extensive plasma weapon arsenal. These volatile guns, dating back to the years of the Horus Heresy, adds credence that many of these souls are revenants of the fell Dropside Massacre of Istvan V. Caring not for fatal, overcharged volleys of such weapons, which may endanger themselves, every Astartes of the Damned Legion welcomes such risks as a potential means to deliver them to the Emperor's side for their glorious final rest. Grinding their enemies beneath their unrelenting marches, always as a single mass of troops, the Legion of the Damned has no need for subtlety nor nuance, for these warp-infused space marines fight alike to a single connected consciousness. Their psychic awareness heightened with their transformation, through divining the master of mankind's will, using the same essence which influences the Emperor's tarot. The Legion of the Damned appear at the most crucial of battles at exactly the opportune time to strike, as outlined in Quadrimester's Tarot Symbiosis. Their actions during their deployment to the Kalamitan subsector, a perfect example of their uncanny speed. Their efforts foiled the schemes of the Emperor's children apothecary, Fabius Bile, and allowed for the discovery of an STC respirator module, which saved trillions of lives from the spider's biovitriol virus. Their enormous mobile fortress, known as the Rapturous Rex, fought lost during 936.M41, and once belonging to the Firehawks, serves as their base of operations. Their use of such a war vessel further establishing their number to comprise the remnants of this vaunted chapter. The single largest voidcraft to have operated during the Badab War, few vessels in the Imperium's arsenal can match its sheer scale. Clad in black ceramite, adorned with bones, skulls, rib cages, and similarly painted chestiquillers, the ethereal flames which wreathe their panoplies mimics those painted on their armor. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull on a field of black, despite its simplicity, is regardless feared by all enemies of the Imperium who behold its promise of obliteration. Believed to be atoning for their past actions allowing their allies to perish for their own preservation, the Legion of the Damned now plunge themselves headfirst into the fray to defend the most imperiled defensive positions. For while the Immaterium spawns untold horrors to torment the citizens of humanity, not all beings born from its tides are malevolent in nature, and even those who are can focus their malignity against the enemies of the Imperium. They are creatures born of the warp, that much even a child could divine. Though they wear the shape of mankind's vaunted defenders, is a matter as immaterial as the warriors themselves. They are demons, and they must be brought low, just as with all their malefic kind. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The cursed sons of the 21st Founding have endured much suffering in their service to the Imperium. Though some have fallen afoul of the corrupting influence of chaos, those who remain stalwart in their defense of humanity refuse to abandon their duty regardless of their struggle. To stand against the most terrible of threats is a responsibility many choose to ignore, yet it is those who stand resolute, often with the heaviest burdens, that are rewarded with respect and adoration. So stand tall, regardless of your flaws, for curses are often boons to those who refuse to be defined by such afflictions.